Operation Domination is underway. The ultimate game plan to dominate your NFL experience. With your hosts, Dan
you gotta be confident about your Achilles when you
Chase
show up.
Thornton,
Yeah, I mean, I got him at
and Adam LaRue. Don't hope to be great and dominate.
Hello, and welcome back to Operation Domination. I am not your usual host. That would be Dan Mader, who is in the lovely Dominican Republic right now enjoying the sun. We'll be having him back next week, but thankfully we have his picks. So if you're looking forward to that, don't fear. We will still have those, but we wouldn't need them anyways because welcoming back the legendary Chaz Filardi. How's it going?
Well, you know, I'm in San Diego, but there's not a lot of places that are better in San Diego. I think Dan may have a one up on me.
Yeah, a rare one up, a rare one.
Yeah. No, I sent my kids a text today with the screenshot of the weather here for the next 5 days, and yeah, it's pretty nice. What happened is, I went on a little journey, and one of the things they did, Adam, is every state I was in, I tried to use bonus money, and I ended up banging Rhode Island. I lost $10 in Massachusetts. New York, I couldn't get in because I had already used them all. But Connecticut was a nice one. I ended up turning $10 into $250.
Oh, not bad.
25x. So they always say to me, "Well, why don't you bet more?" Yeah, it don't work like that. I take my 250 and I'd be happy to have it. But one of the things that happened on that trip was the Nostradamus effect, I like to call it. When you're reading it right, you got to maximize it. So most people, they might bet one or two plays on a game. Now you guys are all in, so you might have 3 props on the offense, 3 props on the home team, 3 props on the visitors. But the 6 bets a game philosophy is the one where you're betting the first half, the second half in the game. In the second half, as you know, I've done fairly well in my career with. But the other one is where you do the team total. So you bet the losing team's team total under, and the winning team's team total over. And we had one of those that went 6 for 6. So that's always really cool because that's really a way of maximizing your opportunity. So you got 15 games this week. You can't bet them all. Props are a little different than sports betting because with sports betting, you really have to say, hey, I'm going to take a pass on that game. Now, in the old days, you took a pass on the game, you took a pass on the game. But nowadays, of course, you can come right in if the team you weren't sure was going to win the game, does something stupid or does something great, then you can hop in live action and it works out real well. But so here's the thing. Dan sends me his notes. I swear if I drop that out on your foot, you might have to go to urgent care. It's a book. And he's done this for me before, but I guess because I was looking at it online and this time I printed it, I realized, holy cow, how much effort he puts into this stuff. And I do the same thing, but I try to narrow it down. But as I'm going through the game, so I do the same way every time. First, I do my data. First I do my stats. First I do my data. Then I do my stats. And then, only then do I go back a second time, or third time actually now, and look at, okay, who do I like? Now, I have a lean on every game, but I don't normally bet every game, but it depends on how it goes. The week the last time we talked, I got stuck in an airport. And so I did a video from the airport. I went 7-3 on the video. And that was, that didn't count the 6 bets, hitting 6 bets in one game. But I always write down my notes. And what I do, oh, by the way, this Stella is my sponsor for this segment. What I do is I write down my notes, and as soon as they come to my head, I write them down because 16 games is a lot of games. So I love when I find teams that allow a lot of points and You look at the team they're playing, and the team can't score. Cleveland is one of them. What good is it if anybody allows points if they're playing Cleveland because Cleveland can't score? And then the other one I noticed is a lot of teams, handicapping is looking at the past, right, and then try to predict the future based on past. So you got a guy that doesn't have bubbled in 300 attempts, Derrick Henry, right? Is my example of that. That stuff's going to happen, but then do they bounce? So if a team sucked up to this week, and last week there was an upset. There have been quite a few home team favorites that have lost the game on the field this year. Is that an anomaly, or is that team getting better, or do they bounce? And those are the kind of things that you have to worry about. Let's see, the next one that I wrote is, how stupid does the Browns front office look now? I mean, they've always been inept. Their quarterback ineptness is historical in nature, is it not? I mean, golly, if you're my age, you've seen 17,000 quarterbacks come through Cleveland. They had a guy, he was starting for him, and now he's throwing 300 yards and 3 touchdowns. I love that game. That game Thursday night was epic. I didn't have any action. I had just got back. We were. It took us 27 hours to get home. So,
oh gosh.
So I was just busy getting caught up on things. But it was wonderful to watch that game. These were 2 old guys, and I have an affinity for old guys, and they were throwing the ball all over the field. It was just amazing. You kind of felt it was going to be whoever scored last won that game, and that's exactly what happened. So as we go through the data, I always remind the guys that when I say 8 out of 9, and you're in week 7, you're talking about a trend that is going back to a previous season. That's a solid trend. It means they finished the season that way and they're doing it again. And I always used my kids when I was younger. When my kids were younger, I would say, I asked them to take out the trash every week for 7 straight weeks, and they didn't take it out, and I had to haul it out when the guy was pulling up the dump truck. I would say anybody who expects on the 9th week that trash to go out on time was an idiot. And so that's kind of how it works with the data. But I'm ready to rock and roll. I've got a little bit of notes for pretty much every game. Some smart aleck comments. There's no doubt there's the smart ass in me comes out with some of these teams. But I'm ready to follow you.
All right. Well, sounds good. Before we get into the slate specifically, just some league-wide context from Dan here. So far, the favorites are 48 and 45 against the spread. Home teams are 44 and 45 against the spread. And the total split is nearly even. So that can be helpful for framing.
That's the coin flip of sports betting right there, man. You can't get more even than those numbers.
Yeah. The Vegas has been doing a good job so far this season. I got to give them that. Setting some good lines. So we're going to start off with the game that I personally will just not be awake for. And over in your time zone, I can't imagine this much different. And that's going to be the London Rams JAX game, 9:30 in the morning Eastern time. Line is at 3.5 for the Rams, over under 44.5. Against the spread, the Rams are 4-2. Jacksonville also is against the spread 4-2. On the over under, both teams are 3-3. So pretty similar trends with these teams so far. Neutral site travel.
And honestly, I've got some guys that I met on this trip that they tell me how they bet. Now I know of them through family, but they really would be better grabbing a quarter. Putting a head is the home team or whatever and flipping it, because that the way they wager is so bad, and then they try to make up for their mistakes. You know how in that blackjack strategy where you keep doubling down, you double and double till you win, and then you win. Yeah, it doesn't work.
Yeah, not everyone has got the notes quite like you and Dan. Anyway, we have a player prop on this game from Dan here. Travis Etienne over on rushing yards. Odds on this are minus 111. Cover probability is 96.6% from Dan here. Context. His recent performance, so rushing yards by week 1 through 6, is 143, 71, 56, 124, 49, and 27. So that last three, of course, is the 124, 49, and 27. So he's actually missed this number 2 out of the last 3 times. However, on the season, he's had a pretty good run at it. It's mostly just been game script based when he's missed it, though. When they have gotten behind, he's had the true spike weeks that have kind of shown you the upside is there. And betting wise, at least, what you've seen on those over under lines and what you see on the spread, this should be a game script where these teams are going back and forth through the game, not necessarily one where the game script is hurting Etienne too much. So what else do you see in this game, or do you have anything?
Yeah, so I've got there's quite a few here. So in the second half on the road, the Rams are 6-1-1 against the spread, and for the game on the road, they're 6-1 against the spread. The way I do this game, they're both road teams, right? It's a travel game. Jacksonville, first half on the road, they've scored 13 plus in 3 of 3. Second half on the road, they've scored 10 or less in 6 of 6. I started a new data program score projection this week, and it was something I worked on while I was traveling. The thing is, I went to Greece, and the 1 o'clock games, East Coast time, start at 8 o'clock in Greece. So that means we went to that first Sunday. We went to a bar and we watched the Denver game. They came back and won at the end. I forget who they were playing. And then the next games start, at almost midnight. And then the Sunday night, Monday night games were 3 a.m. So it really was comical. The first weekend I was able to do it. The second weekend, I just couldn't. I ended up having I had a wedding, but there was a guy at the wedding who had money on the game, and I had it on my phone for him because I have an Android TV app that's on my phone. So we were watching in Greece. We were watching NFL football at a wedding. It was pretty cool. But the way it works is. I look at the score predictions of based on how many yards it takes for them to get a point or give up a point. So if you give up 200 yards rushing or 200 yards of offense, right, and you give up 20 points, then that's 10, right? 10 yards per point. So I'm doing that. I'm going to tweak with it, and some of that will be impacting my plays, but on this one. I have cashed on the Rams in the second half before. The data tells me I'm going to do it again. So the fact that this game starts at 6:30 is not a big deal because I just got to get up by 8, right? And that's when I get the second half. So that's my play. I'm going to be on the Rams second half.
There you go. Yeah, I like it. I'm definitely more of a second half guy with some of these the London games personally. Yeah. All right. Cool. With that, on to the next one here, we have Saints Bears. Line is at 4.5 for Chicago, over under at 46.5. Against the spread so far, New Orleans is 2-4, Chicago is 3-2. And on the over unders, New Orleans is 3-3 and Chicago is 3-2. So again, we can see how those over unders are functionally coin flips so far. Dan's player prop here. Caleb Williams over on the passing yards, which is at 229.5. His cover probability is at 70.1%. Edge is at 20.7. Recent performance passing yards by week is 248, 232, 266, 207, 251, and 241, with the last 3, of course, being the 207, 251, and 241. So largely all season long, been hitting this number, the 229.5, just the 2 misses there, and 1 was by 7 yards. Steady floor of around 240 yards per game with multiple weeks well clear of this line when the offense finds a rhythm. Usage-wise, he's averaging 34 attempts per game with around 7.4 yards per attempt and a balanced early down rate. When protection is hanging in there, he comfortably lands in the 245 to 260 yard lane, or range rather, and they are a modest favorite in this contest. Chicago should maintain its standard pass rate through 4 quarters. And if New Orleans is able to push the scoreboard, then you're even safer with just yards and play action and all these things increasing. Saints are allowing around 224.5 passing yards per game to quarterbacks versus the league average of 227.6. They do not give up a lot of explosives, but you can get short and moderate gains pretty easily, which is something that Caleb has been doing quite a bit of. The risk here is that if the offensive line cannot hold up for Chicago, his average depth of target comes down quite a bit, and that can kind of offer you some problems. But thankfully, the New Orleans pass rush hasn't been too incredible so far this season. Do you have anything on this game?
Yeah, New Orleans is pretty poor, actually. But, I love when you see, of the 6 weeks, 5 of the weeks is over 229. 5 out of 6 is 5 out of 6. I don't care what you're doing in life. You get 5 out of 6 and you're not happy, you're greedy. So here's what we got. Quarter one, the Saints allow 7 plus 4 straight. In the first half, they allow 14 plus 6 straight. And in the second half, they're scoring 10 or less in 8 of 9. Both the predictions I've got for final scores on this game show Chicago winning the game. But on this play, I'm going to have them on the money line. What I found is I like to do round robin money lines with 4 teams. If you go 3-1, you get your money back. If you go 4-0, you sweep the board. Of course, you hit them all. And if you go 2-2, well, you know what? You're just not a good handicapper, so it doesn't really matter.
Yeah. There you go. All right, so we'll hear who some of those other teams might be a little bit down the line. Do you have anything on the Dolphins-Browns game? Line here, by the way, is 2.5 for Cleveland, over-under of 35.5, which is the lowest on the board this week. Against the spread, Miami is 3-3. Cleveland is 2-4. The over/under, Miami is 5-1 towards the over. They've been one of our actual few teams hitting the over, but they're offset by a team like Cleveland, who has been in a lot of low over/under games so far this season, and nonetheless, like you mentioned earlier, they cannot score. They have been 2-4 on the over/under, and they've, like I said, they've had a couple in the 30s. So
no, this was the
it's
game
still tough.
This was the matchup that made me write that down, because in the second half, Miami's allowing 13 plus 7 straight. For the game, they're allowing 27 plus 6 or 7. Everyone scores on Miami, but Cleveland just can't score. Listen to these numbers. In the first half, they scored 10 or less in 11 straight. 11 straight, okay? What week is this? 11 straight. And then Game scored 17 or less at 11 straight. In the game, they're 3-12 against the spread, too. So, this game is a thrill-out game for me. But if someone put a gun to my head, I'd be leaning to the over. I got a feeling that there'll be some points scored, because again, it's the lowest. Remember, we talk about that a lot, Adam. The lowest under and the highest over hit a ceiling. They hit a point where the book can't go any lower, because he won't get he it could be a girl. There's girls everywhere in sports betting nowadays. I imagine there's a few bookies that are girls. You can't get that balance, the action you want. Remember, in a perfect world, you bet 110, I'd bet 110. They'd have in their hand 220. They go out back, they smoke a couple cigarettes, and they come back and they give one of us the money, and they keep the difference, and that's how it works for them. And they're pretty good at it, as you mentioned.
Yeah. They set some solid lines, but it can be a little funky when you get on the extremes. Patriots at Titans here. Next game. New England is at 6.5 favorites. Over/under is 42.5. Against the spread, New England is 4-2, and the Titans, evening them out, are at 2-4. On the over/under, New England is 2-4, and the Titans are 3-3. Dan here has Stephon Diggs over on receiving yards at 52.5. Odds again are negative 111. Edge at 12.2, cover probability at 59.8%. Recent performance, so far this season, he's at 57, 32, 23, and then the last 3 games are 101, 146, and 28. And might I add that the snap count has been, kind of going up. He was less than half to start the season. Now he's right around that 60 mark for the most part. Has the 2 big volume weeks, 2 and 3 weeks ago at 101 and 146, showing the ceiling is still there. 28-yard game is kind of the outlier over the last month. It's pulling the average down. Split underscores targets and coverage story. When he's featured on in-breakers and digs against softer zones, he crushes his number, and when coverage tilts hard his way, he just can't get it done. So far this season, he's averaging 64.5 receiving yards per game, steady first read involvement. He doesn't need explosives because he gets a ton of targets. 8 to 10 should be just fine for him to get there. Environment here is perfectly good for this to work out. New England is favored in a modest total, implies 4 quarters of steady route volume. If Tennessee scores just enough to keep New England throwing the ball, then Diggs' routes and targets remain alive. Titans have allowed 152.3 receiving yards per game to wide receivers, which is above league average at 143.8, softer than average on the perimeter, especially between the numbers, which is Diggs' wheelhouse. Projection edge is plus 12.2. The risk here, of course, is that if New England just pulls away and starts running the ball, routes can fall just a little bit short. But this is a number that one drive can easily hit by itself. You have anything for this New England Tennessee game?
Here's what I've got. In the first half, what do I have here? Oh, okay. So here we go. For the Patriots, for the game, they're allowing 21 or less than 6 or 7. Tennessee in the first half is scoring 7 or less, 8 or 9. And for the game, they're scoring 20 or less in 9 of 10. They're 0-10 against the spread. Tennessee is currently at an 0-10 against the spread run. And I'm not even looking at this game because of the coach situation, right? Sometimes the guy takes over and they just flip a switch. Who knows why they couldn't have flipped the switch 2 weeks ago and saved the guy's job? But do you have an opinion on how much an interim coach impacts the game?
So I have 2 bets that I always like to do. I'm a pretty successful bettor. I've more than doubled my money so far this season. Having said that, I love to bet interim head coaches' first games. I love to bet revenge games. So I'm all torn up with this being Vrabel's revenge game and also the interim head coach for Tennessee. So I'm kind of leaning towards not having too strong of an opinion here. If I same to you earlier, gun to my head, I'm kind of leaning the New England route, but it's tough when you've got kind of both situations going on.
Even though May has been playing much better.
May's been awesome so far this season. So did you have anything for this game?
No, that's it. Like I said, I wrote coach bounce.
Yeah. It makes sense. Raiders at Chiefs. Line total is at Kansas City 12.5. Over under here is 44.5 against the spread so far. Vegas is 2-4 and KC is 3-3. Over under here, Las Vegas is also 2-4 and Kansas City is also 3-3. The player prop that Dan has here is Patrick Mahomes over the 259.5. His cover probability is 59.2%. Odds here is plus 169, so you're making your money back plus some with this one. Passing yards by week so far for Mahomes is 258, 187, 224. And then that last 3 here, which is kind of big, 270, 318, and 257. And remember, this is also the Rashee Rice return game. Last 3 weeks are remarkably stable in that high 250s, low 260s range with the 318 peak that shows the ceiling is there. Early season stuff kind of looks like more like game plan, especially with Worthy and Rice not being there. Recent form supports the higher projection. KC still builds its leads through the air, even with some late game run rate in wins. The first 2.5 to 3 quarters generates enough attempts to sit Mahomes in the 260 plus range without needing extreme ADOT. Against the spread 11.5, total 45.5. Double-digit favorites suggest potential late run lean, but KC typically creates the lead early with passing volume. Again, good for yardage to accumulate before the fourth quarter. So we were hoping to hit this early on. Raiders allow around 231.8 passing yards per game to quarterbacks, above the league average at 227.6. Slightly soft overall and friendly to intermediate windows where KC has been the most efficient so far this year. The risk here, of course, is if KC just clobbers them early and grinds the clock for most of the fourth quarter. Could fall just short, but at plus money, it's a good value.
Yeah, so here's what I got. On the road in the first half, the Vegas has scored 10 or less, 12 or 13. That's almost a whole season. Kansas City in the first half, home scored 10 plus and 12 of 12. So think about it. You got one that scores 10 or less in a dozen straight, one that scores 10 or more in a dozen straight. First half home, they allow 10 or less in 8 of 9. This is, again, the same story. For the game at home, they've allowed 20 or less in 7 straight. So the one thing that jumped out at me is Kansas City hasn't covered versus the Vegas in Kansas City for 3 straight games. So what I'm looking at is I think it's too many points. But both of my final score predictions show Kansas City winning. So even though it's a big spread, I'll throw them in a money line. But as you know, what will happen is if you have a 3-teamer and you add a minus 12 money line to it, it doesn't really change the return. So I look at that. So if I'm getting the same, I got a money line that's 3-1 and plus 300. And then I add a team and it goes to plus 325. I may not do it because it ain't worth the risk, in my opinion, for the little reward. But I do a money line parlay, like I mentioned, and Kansas City will be on it.
Yeah, there you go.
One last thing. I got one last note. When they were 0-2 and the Chargers were 2-0, I went on every show I was on and I said, hey, right now is when you go and bet AFC West, Kansas City. I think they were up to 475, plus 475, something like that. And I looked the other day. I think they're down to plus 150.
All you need is the Chiefs to win and the Colts to beat the Chargers. You're already there.
Yeah,
so, at least having the Chiefs in the lead in the division. On to the next game, and we've got a couple in a row where we will not have Dan to chime in. So,
well, when I did the video last 2 weeks ago, I said to him, because I wasn't talking to him, I was just doing a video in Midway Airport. I was stuck in Chicago. I said, if you find props for this game, God bless you, man. Go for it, and some of these games are like that.
Yeah, there's definitely some where it's just really, really tough to bet. So this is one of them. The Carson Wentz revenge game, Eagles at the Vikings. Line total 2.5 for the Eagles as favorites, over under 43.5 against the spread so far. Philadelphia is 3-3. Minnesota is 3-2. On the over-unders, Philadelphia is 3-3 and Minnesota is 4-1. Do you have anything in this?
This one has a lot of them, actually. So in the first quarter, Philly scored a touchdown or more in 9 of 10. Now, that's Philly, and they did it. Remember they had that season where they lost. They were winning. They were like 10-1, and they lost 5 straight games or whatever. They weren't scoring in the second half, and they're doing it again. In the second half, they scored 10 or less than 6 of 7. Minnesota in the first half they scored 7 or less than 5 of 6, and in the first half they've allowed 10 or less than 6 of 7. And Philly has allowed 60 more yards per game than they're getting. I think that's going to stabilize eventually. But my final score prediction, both of them, one has Philly, one has Minnesota, but they both are over 46. And the under here is 43. So I got the over in this one.
Yeah, I like that. Yeah, I think this is going to be a more competitive game than I think some people think. You have anything else in this one?
Nope, that's it.
All right, cool. On to the next. Here is one that personally I'll say I think I'm only going to see this game on Red Zone a little bit. Will not be operating on TV space for me. This is Panthers Jets. Carolina is a 1.5 favorite. Over under is 41.5. Carolina against the spread so far is 4-2. And the New York Football Jets are 3-3 against the spread so far. Over under, Carolina is 4-2, and the Jets are 2-4.
Here's what I got. Carolina has allowed 24 plus in 9 of 10. And remember, I do all the stats. I only give the ones that jump out at me because 4 in a row is great, but 9 out of 10 is 9 out of 10. On the road, they've allowed 26 plus in 8 of 9. This is Carolina. Week 1, the Jets had 19 points in the first half. And all the weeks since, they've had 21 points in the first half. So in the next 5 games, they scored 21 points in the first half. But my projection, this is my brand new projection for final score. Both of them are more than 42, so I'm on the over. Now, this is new, so I'm gonna try it a little on Saturday with the college games. I already did everything for the NFL, so I'll see what happens. But I look for data that can win. If I'm 7-3, I'll take 7-3. I've done better than 7-3, but I will take 7-3 every single day because, as you know, you're going to double your money at 7-3.
Yeah. 7-3 is it's a good spot to be when it comes to sports betting. Yeah. You get under 60, and it's maybe not your favorite, but
no. And then you're just again then grab the quarter, flip it in the air.
Yeah, but yeah, 70% is a good spot to be in. On to our next game, we have Giants Broncos. This one I actually think is super, super interesting. I'm curious what you have on this one. So Denver is 7.5 favorites. The over-under here is 40.5 against the spread so far this season. New York is the football Giants are 3-3. Denver is 2-3-1 against the spread. Over-under is 4-2 for the Giants and 1-5 for the Denver Broncos. The player prop here that we have from Dan is J.K. Dobbins. At 61.5 rushing yards. Odds here is 112. Recent performance, we have 101 yards, then 79 yards, then 40 yards over the last 3. That shows kind of the full range of upside to downside with the player. His weeks 1 to 6 average sits at around 73.7 yards per game, which is fairly well above this number, of course. So far, he's averaging right around 15.2 carries per game when his team plays from ahead or within 1 score. Carries climb into the high teens, and his medium outcome moves into the low to mid 70s as far as yards are concerned. Spread-wise here, of course, again, is that 7 number. And the totals, depending on where you're looking, is right around that 40 number. A touchdown favorite and a low total. Applies a run-leaning second half, protect the lead, short drives, feed the back. That is kind of the ideal environment you're looking for an over-under like this. Defensively, New York is allowing 98.8 rushing yards per game to running backs, slightly above the league average of 89.8. That adds a positive push to Dobbins' projection range. The risk here, of course, is committee usage with Harvey or an unexpected negative game script or even closer than expected game can trim, some of those late game attempts. But we do not expect that to be the case here, or at least Vegas does not expect that to be the case here. He actually has another one in this game, which is Cortland Sutton with the receiving yards over 56.5. So far this season, Sutton has 61, a 6, 118, 81, 99, and 17. So he's 4-2 on this number with 2 duds and 3 games that very much so beat the crap out of this number, and 1 that was pretty close. Last 3, of course, being 81, 99, and 17. Sutton is clearly Denver's most stable receiver, beating this number at 4-6 and averaging 63.7. Has the 2 dips in slow-paced contests where he saw limited routes. Recent stretch, 81 again, 81, 99, and 17 mirrors season-long trend of dependable mid-60s production with room for some pretty solid spikes. This route tree features intermediate digs and comebacks with a mix of red zone looks, giving him a broad route to get to the number that you need to hit here. Don't need explosives, but he's capable of explosives. Just, average, normal efficiency for him should get the job done. Spread and total, not implying a ton of passing volume. But Denver should still provide 3/4 of good enough passing volume before shifting to run heavy. The risk here, of course, is if Denver builds a quick multi-score lead, the pass rate could fall below expectation, leaving Sutton around the mid-50s. Newark, by the way, is allowing 178.3 wide receiver receiving yards per game, where the league average is 143.8. So that is a really soft coverage unit. So helps you expect above median for Cortland Sutton. Do you have anything on the Giants Denver game?
The worst thing about betting props is that the game script, like you said. I had a couple where I needed 11 yards. I had a whole half to get 11 rushing yards, 11 rushing yards, but they were down by 17. So all they did was throw the ball. And conversely, the same thing. I need two more attempts. He just got to throw the ball 2 more times, but they're not throwing the ball because they don't need to throw the ball, because as we know, when you throw the ball, 3 things can happen and 2 of them are bad, and they just kept handing off, and I think he threw 1 more and that was it. So those are brutal. But this is a weird game because I've got nothing for the Giants, but on Denver in the first half they allowed 10 or less, 7 of 8. For the second half they allowed 9 or less, 6 of 7. And at home in the second half, they allow 8 or less, 10 of 11, and are 9-1 against the spread. And I have had them in the second half in the past. I may have them in the second half this game. But, again, it's my first week of trying this new little data thing that I've been playing with, and it's final score projections. Both of them have the Giants winning. So I am going to be doing a dog parlay, and I'm going to have the Giants as one of those dogs.
All right. I respect it. I do think the number is really high here for me in a game that I kind of expect to just be outright pretty low scoring. Neither of these passing attacks have been all that effective with any regularity. Cortland Sutton, those numbers are great.
Playing at home is one thing. Playing at home when you're a mile above sea level is a whole different animal.
Yeah. Yeah. All right. Colts Chargers, speaking of the Chiefs' route to being in the lead in that division. So the Chargers are 1.5 point favorites and they're home. So that's, functionally a pick 'em for all intents and purposes. Over under here is 48.5, high scoring game. Makes sense. We've got some injuries for both teams on the defensive side. Against the spread, Indianapolis is 4-2. The Chargers are 2-3-1 over unders. Indianapolis is 3-3. Chargers are 2-4. We have nothing from Dan on this one. What do you got?
Yeah, so in the first half, the Colts have scored 13 plus and 10 of 11. Again, going back to next year. For the game, they've scored 26 plus and 8 of 9, going back to last year. Second half on the road, they've allowed 14 plus and 4 of 4. The Chargers in the first quarter home have scored 7 plus and 6 of 7. And in the second half at home, they've allowed 13 plus and 6 of 7. So when I look at this game, my projected final scores are both under the total, but it's too close for me to put money on it. But both the projections show the Colts win in this game, so I'm going to add the Colts to that dog line.
Yeah,
I'll have the points like in with that other game with the Giants. I don't think I'm betting the Giants. I'm just playing with this dog parlay to see what happens. And I do round robin. So if I get round robins with dogs, as you know, is you hit 2 out of 3, you win money. You don't want your money back, you win money.
Yeah, so it's a good way to do it. Commanders Cowboys is our next game on the docket. By the way, I'll just say I also have the dogs Colts money line. So I'm with you there. I agree. Commanders Cowboys. The line here is Dallas 1.5 favorites. The over under 54.5, which is one of the week's highest. There's a couple really high over unders this week. When I was putting together my fantasy rankings for the week, I do look at what Vegas has to say about it because they're as accurate as anyone. So I was looking through the over unders. I was like, wow, there's some monster numbers.
Well, yeah, think about it, right? Everybody on our show, everybody on the show I talk to, they work for a living. And they do this, when their wife's asleep or when their kids are in the bath. I don't know when they do it because it takes a lot of work, especially Dan's thing. But these guys, Sunday night, right? They start on the next week already because that's what they got paid to do. So yeah, I agree with you 1,000% that you got to pay attention to what they're saying. They may not be right, but you got to pay attention.
Yeah, it's always a valuable piece of information to have there. At any rate, over and under 54, and a half. Against spread so far this season, Washington is 3-3. Dallas is also 3-3 on the over/under. Washington is 2-4. Dallas is 4-2. Javonte Williams over on rushing yards is what Dan has here. That is over 68.5. Recent performance is 85, 135, and 29 rushing yards in the last three. Ceiling, obviously, there with the 85 and 135. Also shows that 29 floor. His weeks 1 to 6 average is 79.3 per game, comfortably above the line here. The usage is about 15.3 carries per game. In neutral or favorable game scripts, he typically lands in the 16 to 20 carry window, where even average yards per carry gets him into the low 70s. Dallas versus Washington, the spread, of course, is 2.5 here, with a total of 54.5, a high total with a tight spread, plenty of possessions for him to hit this number, and a competitive game script. The defensive matchup, as far as Washington is concerned, they are pretty much right at league average. 88.7 is what Washington's allowing for running backs, and 89.8 is league average. Neutral matchup. So if you just look at the averages for the player, you can kind of figure out what you need to expect. The risk here, of course, is if Dallas falls behind by multiple scores, the offense may shift towards the pass limit and limit late game carries. Efficiency swings introduce variance around the median, of course, as well. You have anything on Dallas, Washington?
Yes. In the second half, the Commanders score 15 plus and 5 of 5. Now, this was one of the plays I had given up that week because their overs in the last 21 games in the second half, 17, 2, and 2. Think about that. That's 2 years, right?
Yeah.
No, not 2 years. It's a full year.
Closing in on it, yeah.
For the game, they scored 24 plus 4 straight. Dallas, first half, scored 14 plus 4. Second half at home, allowed 10 plus 9 and 9. And this is the second half play for me as well. Second half over. 17, 2, and 2. If you told me anything is 17, 2, and 2, I'm betting it. I'm not even going to do my own research. If I trust you and your numbers, I'm betting 17, 2, and 2 every week until it's not 17, 2, and 2 anymore.
Yeah. That makes good sense to me. 17, 2, and 2 is you can just ride that trend, I think, and do pretty well. Yeah. Packers and Cardinals. This is in the 4 p.m. slate, by the way, as was the Commanders-Cowboys game. So a line total here, Green Bay by 6.5. I was seeing this a little bit earlier here. I don't know when Dan did this, but I'm seeing it at 7. So around that number, depending on where you're getting your bets. Over under at 44.5.
Yeah, that like, the guy puts the sausage. You ask for 6 pounds, right?
Yeah.
Or you ask for 6 pounds of sausage and he gives you 7 pounds. Yeah, don't worry about it.
Yeah.
Maybe you'll take a link or two up. But 6.5 to 7 in sports betting, that's a big difference.
Yeah, it can be a big difference. Green Bay is 2-3 against the spread. Arizona's 3-3. Over unders, Green Bay is 1-3-1. Arizona is 3-3. The player prop that Dan has is the Jordan Love player passing yards over 235.5. His cover probability is at 67.5%. The recent performances here are 183, 337, and 259. So 1 of 3, but really close in that last one. Range is wide. The 2 most recent outcomes point to a healthy ceiling and a stabilized floor. The season average through weeks 1 to 6 is 251.8 yards per game, which is above the line, which means he does not need an outlier day to clear. Averaging about 29.4 attempts per game. That is middle tier volume for a starting quarterback and is sufficient to reach the mid 240s on just average, perfectly fine. Efficiency, if the early downs are productive and he avoids negative plays, the median drifts closer to his projection band. Spread here, 6.5. Well, like I said, could be 6.5 or 7. But in that ballpark, total 44.5. Either way, this suggests moderate total game with Green Bay as the leader. Green Bay can open balanced and then slow down late if they're leading. The over relies on Love building yardage through 3 quarters before the offense shortens the game. Defensively, Arizona's defense has been allowing around 257.5 passing yards per game, which is comfortably above the league average of 227.6. That is obviously a plus matchup for passing production. So even if you would be otherwise a little bit concerned about that last 3 for Love, he gets a little bit boost on the matchup. Of course, if Green Bay controls throughout, fourth quarter attempts could dip and leave him in the 220s as a game-to-game volatility is higher than average. Something to note is that it seems like we are likely to see Jacoby Brissett in this game, who, I don't know about you, I thought he looked really good against Indianapolis last week and could make this interesting as far as keeping them in the game long enough to hit that Jordan Love number. You have anything on this game?
Yeah, first quarter, Packers allowed 0 points in 8 and 9. Only one team scored on them in the last 9 games. Arizona, for the game, the last 4, they've allowed 22 to 24, which is not 22 plus or 24, 22 or 23 or 24 points, 4 straight games. That's fairly consistent. But both of the final score predictions I have show Green Bay winning, neither of them by 7. So again, I'll be using Green Bay on the money line in my money line parlay.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah, the 7's a lot for me personally. I do think Green Bay wins this game, but 7 was tough.
Yeah, I don't forget when you screw me. You screw me, I don't forget it. And that Packer game was it Cleveland, I think.
Yeah,
right? That screwed me big time because I had a great weekend, and I start Sunday night. Saturday night. What I start doing, Adam, is I start pounding my round robins by adding NFL games. I watch college football from 9 in the morning here until that last Arizona State or San Jose State or San Diego State or whatever state game, or Hawaii. I don't have Hawaii games a lot, but there's years Hawaii is a good team to bet either on or against. And I had all these winners, and I ended up waking up to like 7 or 8 round robins ready to pop with the Packers. So I don't forget that.
Yeah, there's just some teams, you see it every year. And I don't know if there's a statistic that really encapsulates this perfectly, but there's some teams that just play with their food, I think, a little bit too much, that just really can't
and
actually
that's the guy in the headset. That's without a doubt the guy in the headset, because you see it all the time. My wife is a fairly knowledgeable football fan. I would say she's probably in the 85 percentile of females in terms of her knowledge of the game. Yeah, she's not going to tell you what formations are, and some of these numbers, she would giggle. What is that supposed to mean, But she'll scream, "Why are you running the ball? Why are you throwing the ball?" Whatever the reason they shouldn't be doing what they're doing. So here's the thing. You got a headset on. You're making 7 figures. My wife's an executive assistant to the CEO, and she's calling a better game than you are. You deserve to get fired in week 6.
Yeah, no disagreement. I think it's been bizarre. They're clearly one of the more talented rosters in the NFL, but they just play down to their competition, it feels like, as of late, or at least so far this season.
I like that,
yeah. So Falcons, Niners here. Dan's team, wish we got to hear from him on this one, but we do have a player prop. But at any rate, San Francisco is 2.5-point favorites. Over under is 47.5. Atlanta is 3-2 against the spread. San Francisco is 3-3 on the over under. Atlanta is 1-4. San Francisco is 4-2. Bijan Robinson is where Dan is going on the player rush plus receiving yards, which the over-under is at 122.5. Cover probability from Dan is 69.1%. Recent performance on the combined yards are 134, 128, 141, 97, 152, 143. That's an average of 132.5, showing a remarkably consistent dual threat floor. The usage here is that in neutral game scripts, he averages around 19.6 touches per game. His air work makes him game script proof and keeps him comfortably above the 120-yard threshold most weeks. Spread here is 2.5, again, 47.5 for the over-under. So one score spread in a mid-total matchup preserves 4 quarters of good touches. If Atlanta plays from behind, Bijan's receiving usage stays active and offsets the rushing volume loss. 49ers are allowing around 90.7 rushing yards and around 25.7 receiving yards per game to running backs versus league averages of 89.8 and 33.6 respectively. That's neutral on the ground and below average with the air. So the edge comes from Bijan's elite usage rather than the matchup. The risk here, of course, if San Francisco controls tempo and Atlanta must lean on wide receiver routes late, carry count drops and his floor moves closer to 110 to 115. Dan also has Penix's passing yards, the line being 224.5. Odds here is in the plus money at 107. Cover probability is at 60%. If you can give me 60% on plus money, me personally, I'm taking that.
Both of these props, you're talking 5 out of 6 games that the guy's done it. 5 out of 6.
Yeah. So passing yards here, like I said, the lines at 224.5. Passing yards here are 259, 218, 242, 276, 233, and 254. The second-year quarterback has settled into about a 260-yard median with strong efficiency when kept clean, averaging 32 attempts and 7.7 yards per attempt. Penix leans on rhythm throws and crossers. When Atlanta stays on schedule, his drive volume and accuracy supports the mid-240s projection. Again, team environment, slight underdog in a mid-total game. Atlanta projects to throw throughout, especially if trailing late. That creates 4 quarters of live attempt volume. 49ers are allowing around 222.5 passing yards per game to quarterbacks, which is right at about league average, about 5 yards under, so slightly less, but right about there. Weakness lies inside the zone and intermediate seams. Both are comfort spots for Penix. Risk here is sustained pressure or early negative downs can force checkdowns and cap yardage under the mid-240s expectation, but thankfully not on the whole, but thankfully for this pick, Bosa will not be in attendance, so don't have to worry too much about the Niners pass rush, I would not think. You have anything in this game?
Yeah, so in the first half, the Falcons are allowing 10 or less in 8 of 9. And on the road, in the first half, they're scoring 10 or less than 6 of 7. In the second half, San Francisco is scoring 10 or less than 6 of 7. This is a game where both the score projections that I have are lower than 47. So I'm leaning under. Probably won't play it, but again, that same guy with the gun. I wish that guy would get his gun out of my mouth, but if he had it in there, I'd bet the under.
Yeah, there you go. Buccaneers Lions. So that favors Detroit by 5.5. Over under is at 52.5, which again, one of these other 50 plus over unders on the week. Tampa Bay has been 4-2 against the spread. Detroit also 4-2 against the spread. Tampa Bay has been 4-2 on the over under. Detroit 3-3 on the same. Player prop from Dan. We have a couple here. First off being Amon-Ra St. Brown at 74.5. Recent performance, we got 45, 115, 77, 70, 145. Last 3, of course, being 70, 145. Has been very consistent with 4 or 6 games clearing or flirting with this mark. His down weeks have come primarily in defensive schemes that force Jared Goff outside of the hashes, but otherwise, St. Brown's volume and route precision have kept him firmly in firmly in wide receiver 1 territory. His 75.3 yard season average sits right on this line, making this projection feel like a fair medium outcome rather than a stretch. Detroit's first read offense still runs through Amon-Ra on in-breakers and option routes, giving him a sturdy short to intermediate target base. He doesn't need deep shots. He's just going to get his 8 to 10 targets with some average efficiency and should land him right around this number, hopefully above. High total with Detroit favored implies 4 quarters of drive volume, and even with a lead, the Lions' pass rate stays above league average. Tampa Bay allows around 151.5 wide receiver receiving yards per game, which is a slightly plus environment, about 8 above league average, especially for intermediate routes where St. Brown does his best work. The projection's modest 4.4 yard edge fits this matchup perfectly. If Detroit leans heavy, run heavy to protect a late lead, route volume could trim just enough to finish around this number. Rachaad White is the other one. Rushing yards at 54.5. Rushing yards by weeks 1 through 6 are 14, 65, 12, 17, 41, and 65. So he's hit it twice, flirted with it once. But of course, those early games in the season were with Bucky Irving in the picture. The pair of 65-yard outings show his ceiling when Tampa Bay stays balanced. The other 4 weeks paint a clear picture of a running back living below this mark more often than not. His 35.7 yard season average sits well under the posted line, making it difficult to justify an over in most game scripts. Tampa leans on White's versatility, but his carry count fluctuates sharply with game flow and trailing targets replace handcuffs, and that's been the norm this season. Without 15-plus rush attempts, he's reliant on chunk games to threaten the over. Spread here is plus 5.5 for Tampa. So as a road underdog and a high total, Tampa projects for a heavier second half pass rate, limiting rushing opportunity. And Detroit allows around 69.8 rushing yards to running backs, which is well below the league average of 89.8, which is one of the stingiest fronts in football, consistently winning the line of scrimmage and forcing teams to abandon early down runs. So one where he is very clearly taking the under on Rachaad White. The risk is if Tampa controls the tempo early through turnovers or field position, White could get 18-plus carries and turn this into a volume game rather than an efficiency one. Dan is betting heavily in this game because he also has Baker Mayfield over on passing touchdowns. That is 1.5. He has the cover probability at 82.9%. Recent performance, he has hit 3, 2, 1, 2, 2, and 2. So one time this season he has been under the 2 mark, and the last 3 have been 2, 2, and 2. Drives are consistently finishing in touchdowns rather than field goals, which is great for his red zone efficiency. He's getting about 31 pass attempts a game with a stable red zone pass rate and a first down play action, keeping defenses off balance. High leverage throws sustain a medium of 2 touchdowns without requiring volume spikes. With the team environment based on spread and the total, a competitive high total game projects for 4 quarters of normal pass rate, the potential for a high pass rate once you get into the 4th. Given the trailing game scripts usually boost Mayfield's attempts. Detroit is allowing around 233.7 passing yards per game to quarterbacks, slightly softer than average through the air against the 227.6 average. And the red zone rotations can be manipulated by quick reads, which is positive for Baker. The only problem here is if goal line rushes, or only negative rather, is if goal line rushes poach touchdowns or pressure forces some hurried throws into tight windows. But these 3 all match up fairly well to bet any combination of them if you so choose.
Yeah, the one thing that I like is finding running backs to catch the ball, because that combined prop, you're not going to break a lot of 38-yard runs, right, in the NFL. It just doesn't happen. You get them, but they're not common. But all it takes is a wheel route when the linebacker falls down, and the next thing you know, your running back is scampering down the sidelines. Or this one, the toss. They put the running back on the slot and they tossed it to him. It's a pass,
Yeah.
Don't count as a run. So, yeah. And in this game here, and I'm a big Baker Mayfield. When they scored, I forget who they were playing. They scored. This, I think, was before I didn't watch hardly any games in Athens because it was 2 a.m. But the other team scored and they left them like a minute. They left them a minute. And they marched right down the field and won the game.
That's been pretty much all their wins so far this season.
Yeah. So, and they've scored 23 points in 12 of 13. 23 points, a lot of points. In the first half, Detroit at home has scored 14 plus 8 to 9. In the second half, 14 plus 8 to 9. Game, 31 plus 8 or 9. So I'm definitely leaning over here, but both of my final score projections have Detroit winning the game, and I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to add Detroit to my money line parlay.
Yeah, I definitely agree. I think this is Detroit's game. Injuries at wide receiver for Tampa Bay are just really, really tough to overcome here.
And Adam, the drop off between 2 and 4, in a lot of things in life, the difference between your top guy and your fourth best guy, it could be, some experience. Maybe, one guy, cares a little more. I don't know. But in the NFL, the difference is between the second starting wide receiver, your fourth starting wide receiver, unless it's a young guy, right, that you don't know. I always tell people that with NFL, you know exactly what you got in your backup. In college, you never do. When that college kid gets hurt on a Saturday and that next kid comes in, sometimes he's the next great thing. I was at a Holiday Bowl one year. It was the Kansas State when Darren Sproles, I think, was playing. They were really, really exciting. And then, 30 minutes on the field, the ambulance, praying for the guy. The whole work stadium was quiet. This guy came in, he went 18 for 19. He was a freshman, and he turned out to be the next great, quarterback for their school. So, but in the NFL, you kind of know what you're getting in the backups.
Yeah, no, definitely agreed there. We got our last game here, if I'm not mistaken, being Texans Seahawks.
So when did they start doubling up every? It used to be once or twice a year, right? They had 2 Monday night games. Now they do it every week.
Yeah, it's been nuts. They've done it a lot this year. I don't know how I feel about it. I think the 1 week they did like an 8 p.m. game and a 10 p.m. game, and that I was okay with. And I'm sure with your time zone, that's even better. But when we just do
when you're an hour apart, it's and one of them is usually streaming.
Yeah.
And so one is clear and one's buffering.
Well, and one of the weeks, I think it was like 8:15 and like 8:35 or 45 or something. And it's like, that's way too close. Like the first game's not even a halftime yet. Like bizarre what they've had on Monday Night Football scheduling. But at any rate, this is one of the situations where we've got a good spread where at 10 p.m. is the Texans Seahawks game at Seahawks. So it kind of makes sense that they're going with the late game there. So total here, spread here is 3.5 for Seattle. They're the favorites with an over-under of 41.5 against the spread. Houston has been 2-3. Seattle's been 4-2 over/under. Houston has been 1 of 4. Seattle's been 3 of 3. The last player prop of the night from Dan here is Zach Charbonnet on rushing yards. He has the under here with the cover probability of 34.7%. Rushing yards weekly 1 to 6. So 47, 10 missed a game, and then 39, 36, and 24. So if you're paying attention, has not hit since week 1, and that was by 7 yards. Downturn mirrors negative game scripts that cut rush volume. When Seattle stays ahead of schedule, he strings together a steady 4 to 6 yards gains. He averages around 13 carries per game and pushes to 15 plus only in neutral or leading scripts. Because Seattle has fallen behind often, his median production lags the posted line. They are a slight favorite in low total possession-driven game means a balanced plan early and enough third-quarter carries to threaten the number if efficiency holds. Houston is allowing around 77.8 rushing yards per game to running backs versus league average of 89.8. So that's a tougher than average front. The limits between the tackle yardage, off-tackle lanes offer some hope, but require sustained touches. The risk here is if early deficits or rotation to other back and closing drives reduce attempts and make the under the high probability side. Do you have anything on Texans Seattle?
Yeah, Houston in the first half, they've allowed 7 or less, 5 of 6. In the second half, they've allowed 11 or less, 8 of 9. And for the game, they've allowed 20 or less in 6 straight. Seattle in the first quarter at home have scored 0 points in 8 of 9 games. So I'm leaning under here, mostly because both of the projections that I have are under 41.
All right. Well, there you go. We've made it through the slate. You got anything else you want the audience to?
No, but I think, and I probably beat this drum a little too much, but between Dan and I know how much time we put into this stuff. The bottom line is you could sit and watch for an hour, and you're probably, it's the what's those little books? You remember in school when you didn't read the book, you can get the little yellow book.
Oh,
Cliff Notes, is that what it was called?
Yeah.
This is what this is. This is prop and sports betting Cliff Notes, and the bottom line is do your own work, but then just listen. And that's what I do. I just listen, or in this case, I read and I look and I see what matches. If somebody sees it the same way I see it, that makes me a little more confident.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I think that helps quite a bit. Always nice, whether you're a strong bettor yourself or you're just getting into it, to have some extra insight. Yeah, you've got yourself and Dan putting in a lot of time into this. So you can trade 1 hour of your time for like 6 hours of two, if not more, of two very experienced bettors.
Domination.
Good deal.
Or domination by Cliff Notes. We'll figure out a title for that.
All right. Well, sounds good. It has been a blast filling in for Dan here. But if we got nothing else, then you got anything you want to promote real quick before we get out of here?
No, you know what? I'm just getting back to reality because of the fact that it was, I was gone literally for 20 days. I'd never gone on a vacation for 20 days before. And it was brutal. Like I said, we left Athens at 5 a.m. and I got home to San Diego 27 hours later. So it was between two airports and 2 flights. One was 11 hours and one was 6 hours. So, but I'm looking forward to getting back to where the games are on a normal time. Actually, last night was the first game I watched in 2 weeks. It was a normal time. I was laughing because, if you've ever traveled, as you know, I don't care whatever your travel experiences is, the longer trips screw up your body. They just do. You can do all your walking on the plane all you want. You can do all the things you think you're going to do, but your body knows you're out of whack. And so it was really funny that I ended up waking up in the middle of the night and I was able to capture a couple of the second half lines because of the fact that the games were still on at 3 in the morning.
Yeah. Hey, that's a good way to do it.
Yeah, but always be cashing, guys. That's what we're here for.
Always be cashing. All right. That's a good way to end this. Thank you again.